Alrighty, well, track has been laid. The first section of the railroad, the first 8 feet of it, is now glued down. Used some liquid nails on that. I'll go back later and fill in all those glaring gaps with with the appropriate ties. Obviously, in this area right here, I will have to lay in some head blocks or something to guide that switch throw out beyond the track. That one is happy where it is. The rest of these will be probably Details West dummy ground throws on wood tie head blocks. I'll make it all work, but we've got everything in now, so now it's just a matter of hogging out my little control panel area further and getting that deep enough to accept not only a recessed panel but to have some room in the back for all the switches and the wiring and everything like that. So that'll have to wait for a week until I can get to the hobby shop and get some of the parts I need, get to the hardware store and get some of the parts I need, figure out where I'm going to get reasonably thick styrene in order to make the box. And then once that's in place, I can start feeding the wires through as I described earlier, get those soldered and get the ties in place. Then I can start painting the track. And once that stuff is in place, I can actually start scenicking this portion of the railroad. And then I see the hard line there where we go to the next module that is still in its foam stage. So, and there's a bit of a misalignment between the initial track plan layout and what actually got put down, but that's quite all right. What I'll probably end up doing is simply running the switches that are to be mounted here forward a little bit so that their center lines can hit where the rest of those are. And if it makes the yard shorter, I think I might lose a car length for every track. But doing some crude measurements of the area, courtesy of various internet map programs and what have you, I've determined that my initial track plan for this area was actually longer than the prototype that initially occupied it. So if it gets a little shorter, it'll only make it a little closer to the original prototype that inspired this thing to begin with, and certainly nothing wrong with having something that's still basically full-scale prototype. So this big chunk of foam is going to be the real challenge. That's why I kind of did this 8-footer first, because this one's kind of the easy side. You know, the easy teenage version of model railroading. Try out a couple of concepts on this and see how they work out. So far, everything is working out as planned. Just like the A-Team, I love it when a plan comes together. So we'll get this one hammered out first and make sure we've got kind of proof of concept, and then we'll apply those things with a bit more wisdom to the really big chunk of foam that, if I screw this up, will cost me $60 to replace. So we'll be getting this one right. Alrighty, see, I've been busy on the second module. We've got the little pockets cut out for the styrene chips for the turnouts, and I've been busy carving out the first stage of the riverbed for the South Platte. You can see I went a couple inches inside the bank edge, except for that little quay wall area. There's going to be kind of a little waterfall affair there. And then, so I'll start carving the depth down to the actual water level itself. And it'll give me kind of a little stair-step effect that'll allow me to kind of bite into it a little easier with my Sureform tool. Get an angle on it, kind of get everything roughed out. And then I'll be wrapping the entire thing in plaster cloth and getting it prepped for paint. So that's where things are at right now. Stay tuned, folks. Alright, Mike Lindsay here with a little update on what I've been doing on the railroad. See, I've got the riverbed more or less roughed out and plastered over. Now the kitty is walking on it. And just kind of the first initial cast to give me a shape upon which to apply the rest of the scenery. You can see we've got a little drop for the waterfall. I'll have to do some trimming once this stuff is fully set up, but because a quay wall is going to go right there that kind of comes to this corner right here, so I'll have to shape that out so it's a little more precise. And the same kind of story going on over here. The concrete wall that goes along the west end of the power plant buildings right there, and kind of narrows everything down as water comes over the little falls and continues on its way north. There's also a little kind of an island, just a high spot in the riverbed that I noticed when looking at this area on Bing Maps. And I thought, well, wouldn't that be an interesting little feature to have that poke up a little bit and have the water kind of flow around it? So, and now, listen, Mr. Paws, stop walking on that damn thing. So, yeah, that's where we're at right now. Kind of glad I got this portion of it done. There's so much foam work to do. I had to cut out the shelving area for the switch throws underneath here, and got an area marked out where I'm going to put another electrical control panel. And I got the front end shaved down a little bit more to match the other module, so once I start putting fascia boards up on everything here, it'll look nice and precise, tight, and all those other adjectives. So, and of course I got a little, I mentioned there's kind of a little waterfall here. I'll have to precise up that edge a little bit so that I can mask off for the initial pour of Envirotex once I get to that area. I'm thinking I need to pour this first so that anything that might sneak through the cofferdam and maybe bleed out into the lower riverbed can be watered over when the lower level is poured. And then I'll have to watch some videos or look something up on how to model a waterfall. You know, I've never modeled water in my entire life, and now I'm jumping into it head first. No pun intended. Alright, so that bit's done. You can see where the mud kind of fills in that unnatural looking little ridge. And it'll probably dry slower because it's thicker in that spot. It may crack a little bit. That's fine. I just need something in there, either underneath another layer of plaster cloth or the scenery. I'll probably use plaster cloth to reinforce it in case it does chunk up and start flaking. It'll be contained in something a little more stable, and then down with the details and dirt and all that other happiness. So we'll kind of stop things on this part of it right now. I'm going to switch my attention over to this half of the module and just get it painted, so I can at least start laying down preliminary pieces of track. I've got enough to carry that second track from the right, which is the quote-unquote main line, carry that all the way through to the switch ladder that brings it up to the edge of the bridge where the kitty has inconveniently placed himself. Say hi to the folks, Mimi. So, yeah, I can kind of use where the cat's sitting as a stopping point, and I'm not going to lay all the tracks to the back until I've got a rough idea of how big the power plant's going to be, where things are going to go. I'm going to use my router to cut a relief in there for a piece of plexiglass upon which the power plant building will rest. So I don't want to have track glued down and have it end up being in the way of the edges of the router. So all things in their time, but a little paint won't hurt. Paint never gets in anybody's way. So we get that down, that way I can at least lay some track, and I have all the switches I need, so I can at least get them laid in, and then I'll feel like I'm at an okay stopping point until the end of the week when I get paid and I can stroll on down to the hobby shop and the various other suppliers that are helping me make this project a reality when the cat is not trying to bat the camera phone out of my hand. Everything's a plaything, isn't it, kitty? Okay, enough playing with the kitty. I got other work to do.